Marcus Chen pushed his thick-rimmed glasses up his nose for the 100th time that day. The Xenobiology conference at the Galactic Unity Station was overwhelming. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the massive conference halls, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of sounds, colors, and even scents that made his head spin. He clutched his datapad closer to his chest, trying to make himself smaller as a group of crystalline Voltari floated past, their bodies chiming like wind chimes. At 28 years old, Marcus was one of Earth's youngest xenobiology researchers, but he felt like a child lost in a cosmic shopping mall. Deep breaths, he whispered to himself, finding a quiet corner near a viewing port that looked out into the swirling nebula beyond. His presentation on human adaptive genetics wasn't until tomorrow, but his anxiety was already through the roof. Public speaking terrified him more than any alien creature he'd studied. That's when he saw her. She stood alone at the far end of the observation deck, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. She was humanoid in shape, but clearly not human. Her skin seemed to shimmer between deep purple and midnight blue, like the surface of a soap bubble. Long silver hair cascaded down her back, moving with an ethereal quality as if underwater. But what truly captivated him were the wings folded against her back, membranous and opalescent, catching the nebula's light in ways that made them look like stained glass windows. She turned, and their eyes met across the empty space. Hers were golden, with vertical pupils that dilated as she looked at him. Marcus immediately looked away, his face burning. He pretended to be fascinated by his datapad, scrolling through notes he'd already memorized. "Your research is on human genetic adaptability." The voice came from directly beside him. Marcus jumped, nearly dropping his datapad. She had moved across the observation deck without making a sound. Up close, he could see scales that caught the light along her jawline and the backs of her hands. They looked like tiny opals. Yes, Marcus stammered. "How did you?" She smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp to be human. "Your badge." Dr. Marcus Chen, Earth Initiative, Xenobiology Division. "Your published papers on human evolutionary plasticity are quite fascinating. You've read my papers?" Marcus couldn't hide his surprise. His work wasn't exactly bestseller material. "I've read everything about human genetics published in the last decade," she said, tilting her head in a way that reminded him of a curious bird. "My name is Serena Dracoris, of the Draconian Matriarchy." Marcus's eyes widened. The Draconians were legendary. One of the oldest spacefaring species. Masters of bioengineering and genetic manipulation. They rarely interacted with younger species like humans. "I'm honored," he managed to say, attempting a bow that came off as awkward. "What brings you to a conference like this? I mean, surely your people are beyond our elementary understanding of genetics." Serena's laugh was like silver bells. "Knowledge has no hierarchy, Dr. Chen. Even the youngest species can offer unique perspectives. Humans, in particular, fascinate me." "We do?" Marcus adjusted his glasses again, a nervous habit. "Most species find us rather unremarkable. Average strength, average intelligence, average lifespan. But that's where they're wrong." Serena moved closer, and Marcus caught a scent like ozone and exotic spices. "Do you know what makes humans truly exceptional?" Marcus shook his head, mesmerized by her proximity. "Your adaptability isn't just physical," she explained, her golden eyes intense. "Your species forms emotional bonds across genetic boundaries that would kill most others. You adopt offspring not your own, form pack bonds with entirely different species, and most remarkably—" She paused, studying his face. "You can love without biological imperative." "I never thought of it that way," Marcus admitted. His heart was racing, and he wasn't sure if it was from academic excitement or something else. "Tell me, Dr. Chen," Serena said, her wing unconsciously extending slightly to shield them from the passing crowd, creating an intimate bubble. "Why did you choose xenobiology?" Marcus felt oddly comfortable in this private space she'd created. "I've always been fascinated by life that's different from us. When I was young, I had trouble connecting with other kids. I spent hours reading about animals, especially the weird ones. Octopi that can change color, mantis shrimps that see colors we can't even imagine. When we made first contact, I knew I wanted to understand alien life. You felt alien among your own kind, Serena observed. It wasn't a question. Still do sometimes, Marcus confessed, then immediately regretted his honesty. Sorry. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Don't apologize. Your honesty is refreshing. Most beings at these conferences wear masks thicker than thermal shielding. She gestured at the crowd. Would you like to see something? Before Marcus could respond, Serena's form shimmered. The scales on her skin became more pronounced, spreading up her arms like living armor. Her wings expanded fully, revealing their true span, at least 3 meters. Her fingers elongated, ending in delicate but clearly sharp claws. Her pupils became more serpentine, and when she smiled, her canines had grown into elegant fangs. Marcus should have been terrified. Instead, he was captivated. True form, she said simply. Or closer to it. We draconians are shapeshifters by nature. This is why we're dying. Dying? Marcus's scientific mind kicked in, overriding his social anxiety. Your species is dying? 2. Serena nodded, her wings folding back as she returned to her more humanoid appearance. We've become too specialized, too perfect. Our genetics are so refined that we've lost the chaos that drives evolution. No variations, no mutations, no adaptability. We're crystallized in our perfection. That's genetic stagnation taken to its extreme. Marcus breathed, his mind racing. But surely with your bioengineering capabilities. We've tried everything, Serena interrupted gently. Artificial mutations are rejected. Cloning produces degraded copies. We need something we lost eons ago. Genetic diversity from a source our systems won't reject. What source would that be? Serena looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. That's what I'm here to find out. They talked for hours. Marcus forgot about his anxiety, forgot about the conference, forgot about everything except the fascinating being beside him. Serena asked probing questions about human evolution, about their remarkable ability to survive in almost any environment, about their chaotic but resilient genetic structure. Your presentation is tomorrow? She asked as the station's artificial day cycle began to dim the lights. First thing in the morning, Marcus groaned. I'll probably stutter through the whole thing and forget half my data. I doubt that. You've been explaining complex genetic concepts to me for 3 hours without a single stutter. Marcus blinked. She was right. You're easy to talk to. As are you. Serena stood, stretching her wings slightly. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? After your presentation? You want to have dinner? With me? Marcus couldn't hide his disbelief. Is that so strange? I'm not exactly, he gestured vaguely at himself. I mean, look at me. I'm just a nerdy human who spends too much time in labs and can't even match his socks properly. Serena looked down at his feet, where indeed, one black sock and one navy sock peeked out from his shoes. Her laugh was warm. And yet, you're one of the most interesting beings I've met in centuries. Tomorrow, then? Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. As she walked away, her wings catching the last of the light, Marcus slumped against the viewing port. His heart was racing, his palms were sweaty, and he had no idea what had just happened. The next day's presentation went better than Marcus had ever hoped. Every time his nerves threatened to overwhelm him, he spotted Serena in the audience. Her encouraging smile gave him confidence he didn't know he possessed. He fielded questions with ease, his passion for the subject overcoming his usual anxiety. Afterwards, colleagues congratulated him, but Marcus only had eyes for the dragon woman approaching through the crowd. Brilliant, she said simply. Your theory about human genetic flexibility being linked to emotional adaptability was inspired. You really think so? I wasn't sure if I explained the protein folding clearly enough. Marcus, she interrupted gently. You were perfect. Now, about that dinner? The restaurant she chose was unlike anything on Earth. Located in the station's diplomatic quarter, it catered to species from across the galaxy. Their table was in a private alcove with adjustable atmosphere. Serena had set it to something between Earth normal and her own world's preferences. Try this. She offered him a dish that looked like blue flowers made of crystal. It's safe for human consumption, I checked. Marcus took a cautious bite, and his eyes widened. It tasted like honey mixed with starlight, if starlight had a flavor. This is amazing. They talked about everything and nothing. Marcus learned that Serena was over 300 years old, young for a draconian. That she had 12 siblings, all sisters. We're matriarchal for a reason, and that she collected ancient texts from extinct civilizations. The poetry of the vanished ones could make stars weep. Can I ask you something? Marcus said as dessert arrived. A floating confection that dissolved on the tongue like sweet snow. Anything. Why are you really here? At this conference, I mean. Someone of your standing could access any research database in the galaxy. Alder. Serena was quiet for a long moment, her golden eyes studying him. How much do you know about draconian reproduction? Marcus felt his face heat. Basic xenobiology stuff. You're oviparous, laying eggs that require specific conditions to develop. The mothers can influence offspring characteristics through mental focusing during gestation. Textbook accurate but incomplete, Serena said. We're also dying out. Our birth rates have plummeted. Those eggs that are laid rarely hatch. We've become too genetically homogeneous. I'm sorry, Marcus said. Meaning it. Is there anything? Is there research that might help? Serena leaned forward. There might be. We've discovered that certain species can serve as genetic catalysts. Not direct breeding, but their genetic material can trigger dormant sequences in our own code. Humans are one of only 3 species we've identified with this potential. That's fascinating. Marcus's scientific mind raced. The protein structures must have convergent evolution points despite the different origins. Have you mapped the specific sequences? We have. Marcus. She reached across the table, her scaled hand covering his. It was warm, almost feverish. I need to tell you something. And I need you to not run away. Okay, Marcus said, his voice smaller than intended. I've been searching for a very specific human. One whose genetics carry markers we've identified as optimal catalysts. Someone whose emotional adaptability rates in the highest percentiles. Someone whose offspring, theoretical offspring, would have the greatest chance of survival. Marcus's mouth went dry. And? I've found him, Serena said softly. I found him yesterday. Standing alone by a viewing port, anxiety radiating from every pore but still brave enough to attend a conference that terrified him. I found him in a man who sees beauty in the strange and different, who chose to study life unlike his own because he felt alien among his own kind. Serena. Marcus couldn't form words. I know this is sudden. I know it's overwhelming. But I need you to understand. This isn't just about genetics. Yes, your DNA is compatible. Remarkably so. But draconians can't reproduce with someone we don't genuinely connect with. It's not just physical. It's emotional, mental, even spiritual. Marcus pulled his hand back, his mind reeling. You're saying you want me to father a child? Yes. Serena's voice was steady, but he could see vulnerability in her eyes. The first draconian human hybrid. The first hope my species has had in generations. But I'm nobody special, Marcus protested. I can barely talk to people without panicking. I live on instant noodles and forget to sleep when I'm researching. I've never even had a serious relationship because I'm too awkward. You're kind, Serena countered. Brilliant, curious. You look at me. A being who could kill you with a casual swipe of my claw. And you see beauty. Do you know how rare that is? How many beings see only the predator in us? Marcus was shaking his head. This is insane. We just met yesterday. You can't possibly know. Can't I? Serena stood, moving around the table to kneel beside his chair. A gesture that shocked him given her proud bearing. Marcus, I've lived for 3 centuries. I've met thousands of beings from hundreds of species. Never have I felt what I felt when we talked yesterday. Never have I wanted to share my true form with someone and trust they wouldn't fear it. I don't know what to say, Marcus whispered. Say you'll think about it, Serena asked. Take time. Ask me anything. Let me show you who we really are, what this would mean. No pressure, no obligations, just possibility. Marcus looked into those golden eyes and saw not a desperate alien trying to save her species, but a woman, strange and beautiful and achingly sincere, asking for a chance. Okay, he heard himself say. I'll think about it. Serena's smile was radiant. That's all I can ask. As they left the restaurant, Serena walking close enough that her wing occasionally brushed his shoulder, Marcus wondered what he'd gotten himself into. He was a shy, nerdy xenobiologist who could barely manage his own life. She was an ancient dragon woman from a dying race. Yet, when she laughed at his awkward joke about protein synthesis, when her hand found his as they walked, when she listened with genuine interest as he rambled about his favorite research, Marcus felt something he'd never experienced before. He felt like he belonged. The station's artificial stars were coming out as they reached his quarters. Serena turned to face him, her wings creating a private world for just the two of them. Thank you, she said softly. For listening. For not running. For being you. Before Marcus could respond, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, almost hesitant, but it sent electricity through every nerve in his body. When she pulled back, her scales were shimmering with colors he'd never seen before. Good night, Marcus Chen, she whispered, and then she was gone, leaving only the scent of ozone and spice and the memory of warmth. Marcus stood in his doorway for a long time, fingers touching his lips, wondering if the entire day had been a dream. Inside his quarters, his datapad blinked with a new message. For your research, it read, followed by terabytes of draconian genetic data. Information that xenobiologists would kill for. And for you to know I'm serious about sharing everything with you. Marcus sank onto his bed, still in his clothes, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere out there in the station, a dragon woman was probably doing the same thing. Tomorrow, he would have to make a decision that would change his life forever. But tonight, for the first time in his life, Marcus Chen felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. The next morning came too quickly for Marcus. He had spent half the night poring over the genetic data Serena had sent, and the other half staring at the ceiling, replaying their kiss. His reflection in the bathroom mirror showed dark circles under his eyes and hair that defied gravity in 7 different directions. Get it together, he muttered to himself, attempting to tame his unruly black hair. You're a scientist. Approach this scientifically. But how did one scientifically approach being asked to father a child with an ancient dragon woman? His door chimed. Marcus, still in his pajamas and with toothpaste foam at the corner of his mouth, opened it to find Serena standing there with 2 cups of something steaming. Coffee, she said, offering him a cup. Or the closest equivalent this station has. I thought you might need it. Marcus became acutely aware of his appearance. His faded Star Wars pajamas, his ridiculous bedhead, the toothpaste he was now wiping away frantically. I'm not really. May I come in? Serena asked gently. Today she wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of starlight itself, making Marcus even more aware of his shabby state. It's messy, he warned, but stepped aside. So is life, she replied, entering his quarters. Marcus's quarters were exactly what one might expect from a research-obsessed bachelor. Datapads covered every surface. Holographic displays showed rotating DNA helixes, and empty instant noodle containers formed a small city in the recycling bin. Clothes were draped over chairs, and his bed was unmade. Sorry, Marcus said, frantically trying to clear a space on his couch. I don't usually have visitors. Stop apologizing, Serena said, settling gracefully onto the cleared spot. I didn't come here to judge your housekeeping. I came to see you. Marcus sat on the opposite end of the couch, clutching his coffee like a lifeline. About last night, are you having second thoughts about considering it? Serena asked directly. No, yes. Marcus took a breath. I stayed up, studying the data you sent. The genetic compatibility is remarkable. The protein structures align in ways that shouldn't be possible given our evolutionary divergence. It's like finding out that jigsaw pieces from completely different puzzles somehow fit together perfectly. And? Serena prompted, a small smile playing at her lips. And it's the most fascinating thing I've ever seen, Marcus admitted. From a purely scientific standpoint, the offspring would be extraordinary. Hybrid vigor taken to an extreme. The potential for entirely new genetic expressions, abilities we can't even predict. But Marcus set down his coffee and really looked at her. But we're not talking about a science experiment. We're talking about a child. A living being, and, he struggled for words, what kind of father would I be? I can barely remember to eat regular meals. I get lost in my research for days. I've never even had a pet, because I'm afraid I'd forget to feed it. Serena moved closer on the couch. Tell me about your parents. The question surprised him. My parents? They died when I was 15. Car accident. I'm sorry. They were good people, Marcus continued, not sure why he was sharing this. Dad was an engineer. Mom was a teacher. They never quite understood my obsession with biology, but they supported it, bought me every book I asked for, drove me to science fairs, pretended to be interested when I talked about cellular mitosis at dinner. They loved you, Serena observed. Yeah. Marcus smiled sadly. They did. Even when I was the weird kid who preferred microscopes to sports, who reads xenobiology textbooks for fun. And you think their love, their acceptance, isn't something you could give to a child? Marcus looked at her sharply. That's not fair, isn't it? Serena challenged. You speak of your inadequacies, but I see a man who loved his parents so much, he still grieves them 13 years later. Who pursues knowledge not for glory, but for understanding. Who looks at an alien dragon and offers kindness instead of fear. You make me sound better than I am, Marcus muttered. Or perhaps you see yourself worse than you are. Serena pulled out her own datapad. Would you like to know what our analysis says about you? You analyzed me? Marcus wasn't sure whether to be offended or intrigued. Of course. This decision affects the future of my entire species. I was thorough. She activated a holographic display. Marcus Chen, IQ, in the 98th percentile, but more importantly, emotional intelligence scores that are off our charts. Empathy ratings that would qualify you for diplomatic corps of most species. Adaptability index. Higher than 97% of humans tested. Also, those tests are flawed, Marcus protested. Perhaps. But this isn't. She pulled up another display. Yesterday, during your presentation, your biometrics showed severe anxiety, elevated heart rate, increased cortisol, all markers of significant stress. Yet you completed your presentation flawlessly. Do you know why? Adrenaline? Love, Serena said simply. Love for your subject matter, passion for understanding. The same readings appeared when you were examining my genetic data last night. You don't just study life, Marcus. You celebrate it. Marcus felt his face heating. How do you know what my readings were last night? The datapad I sent has monitoring capabilities. I wanted to see if you'd truly engage with the information or just skim it. She looked almost sheepish. You studied it for 6 hours straight. You ran 17 different compatibility models. You even started drafting a paper on the theoretical offspring's potential adaptive capabilities. You spied on me? I studied you, the way you study your subjects. The difference is, she moved closer. I liked what I found. Marcus stood abruptly, pacing to the window. This is happening too fast. People don't just meet and decide to have children together. There's dating, getting to know each other, figuring out if you're compatible beyond just genetics. You're right, Serena said quietly. In your culture, that's the way. In mine. She joined him at the window. We know. When a draconian finds their match, we simply know. But you're not draconian. So let me court you, Marcus Chen. Let me show you who we are. Who I am. Let me prove that this is more than desperation or science. Court me? Marcus almost laughed. I wouldn't even know what that looks like. Neither do I, with a human, Serena admitted. But we're both scientists. We can figure it out through experimentation. Despite himself, Marcus smiled. Experimentation in courtship. There's a paper in that. Several, I'd imagine. Serena's wing extended slightly. Not quite touching him, but creating a sense of closeness. Will you let me try? Marcus looked at her. This impossible, beautiful, terrifying, wonderful being who had crashed into his life like a meteor. Okay. But we do this right. No rushing. No pressure. And you have to be honest with me about everything. Everything? Everything. Your culture, your expectations, what this would really mean. And he took a breath. What happens if I say no in the end? Something flashed in Serena's eyes. Pain, perhaps, or fear, but she nodded. I accept your terms. Shall we start with breakfast? You've had nothing but coffee, and I can hear your stomach growling from here. Croat, dragons have enhanced hearing too? Marcus asked. Then his stomach chose that moment to growl loudly. Okay, point taken. Get dressed, Serena commanded gently. I'll wait. Marcus grabbed clothes and fled to the bathroom. As he dressed, making sure his socks matched this time, he tried to process what was happening. He was being courted by a dragon who wanted him to father her child, a dragon who had read his research papers and analyzed his biometrics, and somehow found him worthy. When he emerged, Serena was examining his bookshelf. Her head tilted as she read the titles. You have The Poetry of the Vanished Ones, she said with surprise, in the original notation no less. You mentioned it last night, Marcus said shyly. I downloaded it from the station's library. Haven't had a chance to read it yet. Serena turned to him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You downloaded a book of extinct alien poetry because I mentioned liking it in passing? Was that weird? That was weird, wasn't it? I can delete it. Marcus, she interrupted, crossing to him in 2 swift strides. That might be the most romantic thing anyone has done for me in a century. Before he could respond, she kissed his cheek, a gentle brush of lips that left his skin tingling. Come. Breakfast. And then I'll show you something special. The station's breakfast options were vastly improved by Serena's knowledge of where to go. She led him to a small cafe run by a furry Bendaxian who somehow managed to cook for 17 different species' dietary needs. 2 human-compatible meals, Serena ordered. Heavy on the protein for this one. He forgets to eat properly. How did you? Marcus started, then remembered. Right. You studied me. Over breakfast, which turned out to be something like eggs but purple and tasting of cinnamon. Serena began to truly share her world with him. Draconians are born knowing we're part of something larger, she explained. Our consciousness is partially collective, not a hive mind, but connected. When one of us dies, we all feel it. When one of us rejoices, there's an echo in all our hearts. That sounds beautiful and terrifying, Marcus said honestly. Both, Serena agreed. It's why our declining birth rate is so devastating. Each year, we feel more deaths than births. The collective grows quieter, lonelier. A.T. What about your family? You mentioned sisters. 12 sisters, all older. I'm what you'd call the baby of the family. Though that was 3 centuries ago. She smiled. They think I'm mad. Coming here. Seeking a human. Why? Because draconians are proud. We've been traveling the stars since your species was learning to use tools. The idea of needing another species to survive is difficult for many to accept. According it built in Minasar, but not you? I've always been different, Serena admitted. Too curious, my mother says. Too willing to see strength in what others call weakness. She looked at him intently. Humans are seen as weak by many species, short-lived, fragile, without natural weapons or defenses. But I see what they miss, which is, you adapt. Not just physically, but culturally, emotionally, spiritually. You take in the orphaned, the lost, the different, and make them family. You bond with creatures that should be your predators. You find beauty in the terrifying. She gestured to herself. Case in point. You're not terrifying, Marcus protested, then paused. Okay. Maybe a little. But, in a good way? Serena laughed. In a good way. Come, let me show you that special thing I mentioned. She led him through parts of the station he'd never seen, past diplomatic quarters and restricted zones. Her credentials opened every door. And soon they stood in a room that took Marcus's breath away. It was a perfect recreation of a dragon nursery. The walls showed a holographic sky of a world Marcus had never seen. 3 moons hanging in a purple twilight. Crystalline structures grew from the floor like organic architecture, each one cradling what looked like an opal the size of a basketball. Eggs, Serena said softly. Simulated? Of course. But accurate to the smallest detail. Marcus approached one slowly, his scientific mind captivated. The shells look like they're made of compressed energy. In a way, they are. Draconian eggs don't just protect the young. They filter environmental energy, allowing the mother to influence development through meditation and focused will. She touched one gently, and it pulsed with soft light. A human draconian hybrid would need something different, a fusion of our methods. Live birth might be necessary, Marcus mused, his mind already working. The human genetic contribution would likely require a more mammalian development process, but perhaps with some of the energy filtering properties maintained through a modified placental structure. He trailed off, realizing Serena was staring at him with that unreadable expression again. What? You're already solving for it, she said softly. Not whether it should be done, but how it could be done. Marcus flushed. It's an interesting problem from a biological standpoint. Is that all it is? He met her eyes. No. It's not. They spent the rest of the day together. Serena showed him more of her world through holographic records. The crystal cities of Draconia. The floating gardens where younglings learn to fly. The ancient libraries containing knowledge from civilizations long extinct. We're historians as much as we are explorers, she explained, as they watched a recording of a draconian ceremony. Dragons in their true forms spiraled through the air in complex patterns, their wings creating aurora-like displays. We preserve what others forget. It's beautiful, Marcus said, mesmerized. Your true forms. May I ask why you maintain humanoid shapes around other species? Comfort, Serena replied. Most species react poorly to a 5-meter dragon suddenly appearing. We learned long ago that diplomacy works better when others aren't running in terror. But you showed me your true form. That first night. You didn't run, Serena pointed out. Your heart rate increased, but with excitement, not fear. Your pupils dilated with interest. You leaned forward instead of back. You were beautiful, Marcus said without thinking, then immediately turned red. I mean, scientifically speaking, the bioluminescent properties of your scales were fascinating. Marcus, Serena interrupted his rambling. Thank you. As the day wore on, they talked about everything. Marcus shared his childhood dreams of becoming a xenobiologist, his struggles with social anxiety, his fear that he'd never find someone who understood his passion for the strange and wonderful. Serena spoke of her own challenges. Being the youngest in a species that valued age and wisdom. Her reputation as a radical, for suggesting they needed help from lesser species, her loneliness among her own kind who couldn't understand her fascination with other forms of life. We're both outsiders, Marcus realized as they sat in his quarters that evening, sharing tea and going through his research together. Perhaps that's why we fit, Serena suggested. She was curled on his couch in a way that should have been impossible for someone with wings, but somehow she made it look graceful. About the hybrid, Marcus said carefully. I've been thinking about the practical aspects. Oh, if we did this, what would happen to the child? Would they be raised on Draconia? On Earth? How would a hybrid even fit in either society? Serena set down her tea. Those are the right questions. The hard questions. She was quiet for a moment. I won't lie to you, Marcus. It would be difficult. The child would be unique, possibly alone of their kind for years, until we could refine the process. They'd face prejudice from both species, those who see mixing genetics as abomination. So why do it? Beyond saving your species, I mean, because... Serena moved closer. That child would also be a bridge. The first true blend of our kinds. They'd have your adaptability and our strength, your curiosity and our wisdom. They could be something entirely new, entirely wonderful. Or they could be lonely and isolated, never fitting in anywhere. Marcus countered. Yes, Serena agreed. They could be. Which is why they would need parents who understand what it's like to be outsiders. Who could teach them that different doesn't mean wrong? Who could show them that family isn't about looking the same or being from the same world? Marcus felt something shift in his chest. You've thought about this a lot. For 50 years, Serena admitted, since we first discovered humans might be compatible. I've studied your species, your cultures, your values. I've waited, searched, hoped to find the right person, not just genetically compatible, but someone who could love a child that wouldn't be entirely human or entirely dragon. And you think I'm that person? I think, Serena said carefully, that you're a man who downloaded a book of extinct poetry because I mentioned it once. Who looks at my true form and sees beauty instead of danger? Who's already solving for how to make a hybrid pregnancy viable instead of whether it should exist? She touched his hand. I think you might be exactly that person. Marcus turned his hand over, interlacing their fingers. Her skin was warmer than human normal, and he could feel the tiny scales like braille under his palm. I need time, he said finally. To think, to process. This is life-changing, Serena finished. I know. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. Here? On the station? I've extended my stay indefinitely, she said. I told you I'd court you properly. That takes time. What about your work? Your family? This is my work now, Serena said simply. As for my family, they'll understand. Eventually, they sat in comfortable silence, hands still linked, watching the stars wheel past his window. Marcus's mind raced with possibilities, fears, hopes, and 1,000 questions, but underneath it all was a growing certainty. His life had been a series of not quite fitting, of being too strange, too focused, too different. Maybe, just maybe, he'd finally found someone who understood that feeling. Serena, he said softly. Yes? Would you like to help me read that poetry book? I have a feeling it loses something without proper context. Her smile was radiant. I would love that. As she moved closer, her wing naturally draping around his shoulders as they pulled up the text, Marcus thought that maybe being asked to father a dragon's child wasn't the strangest thing that had happened to him. The strangest thing was how right it was beginning to feel. That night, after Serena had left with another gentle kiss that left his knees weak, Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. But this time, instead of anxiety, he felt anticipation. His datapad blinked with a new message. Thank you for today. For listening. For understanding. For being yourself. Sweet dreams, Marcus. S. Attached was a single image. A photo she'd taken when he wasn't looking, bent over a genetic diagram with that focused intensity he got when truly engaged with a problem. But in the image, His face was soft, a small smile playing at his lips. He looked happy. For the first time in years, Marcus Chen fell asleep without worrying about tomorrow. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. And in her own quarters across the station, Serena pressed her hand to the window and whispered a prayer in her ancient language. A prayer of hope, of possibility, and of a future that suddenly seemed less impossible than before. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the two souls below who had found each other across an impossible gulf of species and space. But for those two souls, the universe had suddenly become a much less lonely place.